All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 2nd convening of the FITCOG meeting. Good to see each and every one of you on this evening, both our panelists and the folks who are a part of our attendee group. Good to have each and every one of you here with us on tonight. I'm familiar with the majority of the names that are here with regard to our panelist group, and that is our direct and immediate working group.
El grupo de trabajo. No vamos a hacer las presentaciones ahora, vamos a empezar a trabajar ahorita.
And hope you all will hang in there with us throughout tonight as we go through our agenda topics. With that being said, I want to move forward then to Ms. Kimberly Dixon. And if you would, Kimberly, would you give us our meeting protocols for this evening?
Will do, Pastor. Thank you. So we will begin with our mission statement. The FITCOG's mission is to work closely with the commissioner in charge of the Portland Police Bureau, the leadership of PPB and FIT members and command to understand, inform, and provide oversight and recommendations to the city's efforts to reduce gun violence in Portland. This will be done by remaining informed about gun violence trends, PPB and FIT strategies, other City of Portland programs, and priorities in supporting this work, and best practices for prevention, intervention, and response. And we lean into this work utilizing our community agreements that begin with how we listen to understand, we practice active and engaged listening, we validate others' feelings and experiences, even when they are different from our own. How we speak our truth with compassion. We speak for ourselves or the agencies we represent. We speak from our lived experience, expertise, and provide facts and details. We make room for other voices. We step up and/or step back. And how we engage with each other. We recognize this to be a brave space rather than a safe space. Truth at times will be uncomfortable to hear, but we remain committed to the process of peaceful dialogue. We recognize that trust is earned, but we also assume positive intent and goodwill even when we disagree. We respect the professional limitations of certain roles within the group. We engage in proper self-care outside of FITCOG. We are mindful of the energy we bring into this space, and we enter each meeting emotionally and physically prepared.
Thank you for that, Ms. Kimberly. And if you would, just one more time, because I like to keep us, mindful and focused on why we're here. Would you just read one more time the mission statement of FITCOG?
Absolutely. The FITCOG's mission is to work closely with the commissioner in charge of the Portland Police Bureau, the leadership of PPB and FIT members and command to understand, inform, and provide oversight and recommendations to the city's efforts to reduce gun violence in Portland. This will be done by remaining informed about gun violence trends, PPB, and FIT strategies, other City of Portland programs and priorities in supporting this work, and best practices for prevention, intervention, and response.
Very good, appreciate that. The reason why I like to hear that multiple times is, again, as I said, to keep us, mindful and focused on why we do what we do. And to just hear those words, and let them just burn, deep into, our hearing and also into our thinking. That we're seeking to understand, we're seeking to inform and to provide, oversight and recommendations on the work that the FIT team has been charged with doing. We're trying to do that on the front end as opposed to on the back end. And so, as a result of that, it is incumbent upon us to really dig in and get very, very close and very intimate with the work that is being done and the people who are doing that work, so that we can best understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, when they're doing it, where they are doing it at. So let's never lose sight of that. With that being said, I want to move forward in our agenda and want to hear from it's going to be Captain Jensen tonight, who's going to give us the FIT summary of activity and also an update on job announcement status. Captain Jensen.
All right, thank you, Pastor Ed. So I've got some good news tonight, in as much as talking about shootings can be good news. So for 2022, for the first 2 months of the year, last year, we were at 257 shootings with 19 homicides. And this year to date, and the year to date number, sorry, for the first 2 months of the year, so not including yesterday or today, it's a preliminary number. Sometimes we have stuff that's in the pipeline that isn't counted, so this number could go up, but it's 165. So even if it does go up from 165, that's still a pretty significant decrease in shootings. And 10 homicides, which is also a very significant decrease in homicides. So that trend is looking good. That's consistent with when I looked last year in November. I think we had year-over-year decrease in shootings every month from May through November last year, and I think that trend is continuing, so that's good. Last year, in all of 2022, FIT recovered 70 guns off the street, and this year to date, so including yesterday, but I guess not yet today because they haven't really been working yet today, they recovered 28 guns, and so that's a trend that's also improving. They're getting those guns that are legally possessed off the street, and they're doing that by being very intentional about who they're stopping, focusing on the right people, and they've also started to branch out and take on some more duties in terms of doing missions, identifying people that have active warrants that are in the game and working to locate and arrest those folks. And so I'm super proud of the work that they're doing. I've been really, really impressed with the work, in particular, Sergeant Townley and Sergeant Kula guiding this team and continuing to push it and move it forward. And that brings me to the third sergeant announcement. I know Lieutenant Dulio sent that to, I think, Miss Edith, and I hope she sent it out to everybody. I think she did at the end of the last meeting. We're looking to get that job description, which is the same one that we used last time, reviewed, and to the extent it should be modified, edits from the FITCOG sooner rather than later. We want to get that thing posted by no later than the 20th, which gives us a good timeline to get that job filled and the new person trained up before summer hits. And so that's the report that I have so far.
All right, very good. And Ms. Edith, I'm sure you did send that out to us. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I can send again if you'd like.
Okay. Probably might not be a bad idea to do that, and then that way we will we'll put that as part of our working session for next week's meeting. Because as you know, as we get down to item number 7, we've now moved into a cadence, at least for the balance of this month, there where we will be meeting on a weekly basis. And so let's let's make sure that everybody has that announcement in front of them, that language, and then let's set our purposes to work through that at next week's meeting.
Okay, we'll do.
Make it a very, very active work session. Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good. All right. Any questions from our group of Captain Jensen at this point? Yes, Lionel, I see your hand.
Thank you, Pastor Ed. And I just want to just acknowledge the work that you guys are doing, Captain Jensen and Sergeant Townley. And we appreciate you guys. This is the start of the year, and it has been looking, like the numbers is trending down, but the sun is coming out. So I just want to make sure that you guys just stay, dialed in, continue to do data-driven stops, and just, get to the next level. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next progression is for the FITCOG. So I just want to definitely congratulate you guys, because you have been working hard. You guys, you have been out there. The community have been seeing you guys, and you've been doing good work. And also, Townley and Jensen, I just want to emphasize to turn up the community engagement part as we move into the summertime. That's going to be crucial to getting some of these guys off the streets. I want to congratulate you guys for arresting the young man who killed PJ. That was really, really big. The community needed that. And so, yeah, just thank you guys for the work that you're doing.
Hey, thanks, Lionel. We appreciate that. It's almost like you're reading my mind, because yesterday, Sergeant Townley and I were talking about how we can better use the data that we have to both put officers in the right spots and then also to better engage the community. So it's definitely top of mind for us.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I echo Lionel's sentiments. Big win for the community to get that arrest of the shooter of PJ. Okay. In this section on the fit summary, I've got a item down there at item number C, and this is really kind of a challenge and a charge to those of us who comprise the FITCOG, and that is the notion of doing ride-alongs with the FIT team. Once again, I want to strongly encourage each and every one of us, if you have not done so yet, and we talked about getting this done, over the next couple months, to look at your schedule, carve out some time, make space, to make room intentionally to do some measure of ride along with the FIT team. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is to actually see the work, see the work in action in real time by being in the car with the officers. It will certainly help you to understand. They will help to inform you of the work that they're doing, and why they do what we do, and why we must do what we do, and it will help us in shaping the guidance that we seek to give them as they go about doing their work. So again, whether you want to be a long hauler and ride with them all night, or if you just want to ride for a portion of the night, however much time you can give, find a slot where that can happen, and where it can happen within the next couple of months. We want to get that taken care of. Okay.
And then, do we know, Captain Jensen, is this open to the public to do a ride along with FIT, or can they ride along? Do we know if it's open yet to ride along with any of PPB?
Yeah, ride-alongs at PPB are open to the public. And for members of the public, you can certainly request a ride-along with FIT. I will say that FIT has a very, very high degree of interest. And so if you want to ride along with FIT, that request may take quite a bit longer to fulfill than a request to ride along with one of the precinct officers. But we're certainly open to taking members of the public out.
Ronnie, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just checking to see if was there anybody in our group was able to do a ride along with the FIT officers, and how was that experience? What was like the play-by-play when you kind of went? I mean, how was it?
Miss Gina?
I had an opportunity to do a ride along. So I'm happy to share some of that. I have shared a little bit of that with folks before. So for me, I kind of did the whole day into the night thing. So I showed up at roll call, and I was probably with the officers that I was assigned to until about midnight or so. I was kind of thrusted into everything. They kind of even had stated that that the ride along I had gone on was actually a really good sample actually of like all of the different things that FIT officers might encounter on a given day or night. So we did everything from patrolling areas, like understanding and learning about what they do as sort of preemptive interruption on the street. So for example, they talked about how there are certain vehicle break-ins that are directly connected to gun violence, and how there are certain types of vehicles based on the types of cars that are broken into and stolen vehicles that they look for. And so we went on a patrol, and so they showed and sort of explained the data that drives those patrols and how they're looking for individuals who may be connected to gun crime specifically based on tracing stolen vehicles. So that was interesting. There was an emergency that happened in a car accident, and we actually happened to be driving by when that occurred. And so just because of the obligation, obviously, so one of the things we did is also tend to the accident and assist immediately on there to see if there was any need of help for the individual that was in the vehicle. And then I think shortly after that, we had gotten a call that there was a shooting. And so we ended up, driving to immediately get on scene to what was a murder that had just happened. And it was an argument actually between two individuals in the parking lot of a residential area. And, a gentleman, they got mad over a parking space, and a guy got mad and he murdered a guy. I mean, that's what happened. And he did it in front of a bunch of people, including the guy's fiance was standing right there when it happened. And so we had an opportunity to kind of see what happens in that kind of investigation. So like what happens at a murder scene. And we were like maybe the fourth or fifth on the scene, I think. So like there were already officers on the scene. The crime scene was just getting taped off. Like when we got there, victims and witnesses were there. They were extremely distraught, screaming, crying. The gentleman had just died right there on the street. The ambulance could not get there in time, actually, so he passed away, unfortunately. And so there was a lot in sort of looking at how they assist on a scene when there's gun violence and the types of things that they're doing, everything from interviewing witnesses, working with the trauma response folks that get there on the scene. If there are they wait for the detectives to show up. And then once the detectives arrive, they really sort of take over and sort of manage the scene regarding collecting evidence and doing all of those things. And it's like a really long night. And then the other thing that we did, and I'm sorry because I got this kind of out of order, but before the murder had occurred, we did do a pullover of an individual who was a high risk individual for gun violence. And how that was, so that was data driven, and I'm not sure what I'm allowed to share about that or not exactly, but I'll just say that there was very credible evidence that they had that was not a hunch. It was based on information, direct information that gathered. This was a young gentleman who was on probation, and he's not supposed to be in felony possession of a weapon, but he had brandished a weapon, I think online, he was clearly in violation of probation, and he was being monitored because he was on probation already. And so his probation officer and the FIT officers went to go basically interrupt him with the idea of like connecting with him, not to arrest him per se, but to kind of do a check-in on him and to hopefully prevent a potential crime. And so that was also really interesting. So what we learned there, when they pulled him over, and he knew because he was on probation, and basically what the officers were really wanting to check was to see if he had a gun on him. He did not. They provided resources for him. They talked with him a really long time and had been working with him to try to help him get out of the current situation that he's in right now, for the reasons why he wants to be carrying a gun. And so there was, probably a good half-hour one-on-one conversation that he had with a FIT officer who was really trying to help him get resources and, to figure out how they can help him succeed. He was let go, there was no arrests made. The gentleman turned down resources. He actually had shared openly that he enjoys his lifestyle and he understands that it could potentially end in a bad outcome. And he was okay with that this was something that he felt was this was his choice. And that's what he wanted to do. And that was also really enlightening. It was a learning lesson on a variety of levels, I feel, just sort of kind of the complexities around situations involving gun violence, right? So we did that. There was, I think, another situation also where there was another, I can't remember, the night was so long and we had so much going on, but there was another situation where, oh, it might have been the same situation. There was a child in the car, and there was another woman, I think, in his company that, there was a woman in one situation where she, I think, potentially had a warrant out for her, and but she didn't, but they had a check, and they had a small child, and that somebody there was driving. They weren't supposed to be driving, basically, but instead of arresting them, they actually facilitated a conversation to have a family member come, and they said, look, if you can call a family member and come to pick you up and your vehicle and you don't drive, like, we're not going to arrest you, you know, because theoretically with that she was driving, it was an arrestable offense with what was happening, but that wasn't their go-to tool. So they arranged for family member to come up. They had a conversation. They introduced resources, trying to get people connected to help, you know, and that doesn't always go well, right? Like, offering resources on the street can be challenging. I feel very strongly, you know, from my experience that night, the officers I was with conducted themselves very professionally. They were engaging in what I would consider to be extremely data-driven. They were not randomly pulling people over. They were not driving around, you know, looking for people who look a certain way. It was completely based on a database of investigative information on very key individuals that are, you know, at most risk. And that when they were engaging with these individuals, it was not, you know, we're not going to just randomly search you and arrest you and do all of that. Like, that was not what I was seeing. Most of what I saw the entire night was really trying to build relationships with people and really trying to figure out how to facilitate getting them assistance or help or connection in some kind of way. So that was my experience. It was an intense night, the majority of the evening, because shortly after that was the call that involved the murder. And so the rest of the evening was on site of the murder scene, and that was very intense. And so I will say this, for any of you who have not done a ride along, or maybe you have done a ride along, but you haven't done one with the FIT. You remember that FIT is first responders and gun violence, and there's a lot of gun violence happening in Portland. And so the likelihood of you being in a vehicle where there is a high-speed chase potentially, or that there is, you know, you're intercepting somebody who is armed and dangerous or on the scene of a murder is actually very likely to happen. And so, you know, for me, you know, that was very intense, and just be prepared for sort of the emotional impact and some vicarious trauma that you might experience in that. So my recommendation to anyone doing a ride along is to just sort of plan for your self-care after, really kind of have a plan of like how you intend to manage, because coming straight home and like going back to your sort of daily activities after being on the scene of a murder is really, you know, it's difficult. So, and that might not happen to you on your ride along, and I'm not trying to scare anybody from not like going, but you know, these are the realities, right? This is what is happening on the streets of Portland. And so you just kind of have to, as best as you can, just sort of mentally prepare. But I felt very safe with the officers that I was with. I felt like they were extremely professional. So I learned a lot. And so I really encourage folks to take the opportunity if you can.
All right, thank you, Gina. We appreciate that. Ronnie, is that a new hand or?
No, yeah, I got a question for Gina. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, that was really intense. Well, I guess the biggest thing is just kind of when you're with them and just kind of understanding all this journey, when you're just kind of following and seeing how they work. How was the community vibe? Was it embracive? Do you feel like there's still more tension out there when they connect with officers? Or did you see something more opposite, where they're just more like you know, grateful that, you know, they're out on the streets?
Yeah, I think so there were, I think, 3 instances where we were engaging with people, and I would say there was a slightly different response at each of those scenarios. So in one scenario, the gentleman that got pulled over, he obviously was worried and concerned. And, you know, I mean, who loves the police? I mean, I'm like, let's just be real. Like people that are interfacing with the justice system. I mean, I wouldn't ever say that they're like, oh, I'm so happy you're here, you know, kind of thing. But he was respectful, they were respectful to him, and there was a mutual understanding in that situation. But this was also a gentleman who has a history of being actively involved in some things that are, you know, illegal and also probably not in his best interest. So, you know, I would say that conversation was a little strained. With the situation with the women, the majority of the people that had experienced that were very positive, and there was not a negative interaction. I think initially they were very concerned about the officers and what was about to happen. I mean, obviously, particularly if there are people of color being pulled over, I would imagine there's extraordinary fear anytime they're about to have an interaction with an officer. I think that the officers were very cognizant of that, and they did a really good job of doing things to try to alleviate fear. So a couple of things, for example, the community kind of opened up and was more embracing when the officer, for example, carries in the back of her car, her squad car, she had toys and things. And like the child that was there on the scene, she was like, hey, you know, because they had to talk to mom, and obviously there's a little there. And so they had toys, and she really like got down to this child's level. And like, he wasn't scared, he was playful, and like mom saw that the child was okay, and she was really thankful that they were engaging with him in that way. And so I thought that was pretty positive. The one negative thing that I will say that I do think could and I understand that police do this for safety, but at one point when they pulled some folks over, there was just a lot of officers. And so it's really, I think, kind of intimidating and scary when you have like 3 squad cars and everyone in those squad cars gets out at once. You know, the car had 3 people in there. It is possible that they weren't sure how many people were in the car. And it's also, you know, I know that there's the potential risk that somebody in the car may have been armed. So I know that officers were approaching with this idea, right, that there might be somebody armed in the vehicle. But from my perspective as a community member, you know, and I'm not the officer like approaching the vehicle, but in that particular stop, I felt I don't know that all of that was necessary in the initial stop. I understand like why there might need to be backup, but like every single officer physically got out of the car and like physically surrounded the vehicle. And for me personally, and because the officers were predominantly white, and then they were pulling over somebody of color, the officers didn't do anything wrong. They didn't like actively intimidate. They didn't do anything aggressive. But just their sheer presence in number was intimidating, right? And then I think once they started talking with her and like they realized that there was not an immediate threat, they dispersed and that energy was dissipated. And so tensions dropped immediately when that happened. And then with the murder scene, they were all in a state of crisis and panic and were desperately wanting police there. In fact, if there was anything negative that happened at that scene regarding the police, 2 things. One, they were upset that the police were not there quick enough. And they felt that medical teams took too long to get there. And so, and what you have to know, if you don't know this already, but if there is a crime that involves a murder or a weapon, and that individual is potentially still on scene, the one that committed the violent crime, from my understanding, and this is what I was told that night, the medics do not go in or enter that scene until the police have cleared it. So the medics were there and they were ready, but they could not enter the scene because police had to get there and make sure that obviously everything was safe and that armed individual was not still a threat to the community and everybody there or to the medics. And so that's something that we could potentially in this group maybe talk about and explore more. And then there was one negative encounter, and I had shared this, but it was not with a FIT officer. So there was a police officer that was on scene prior to FIT getting there, who was very sort of large and in charge kind of officer. He was, you know, obviously under a lot of stress, and he wasn't communicating very well with the witnesses or the victims. And so at one point he yelled at them. And And, and they had literally just witnessed a murder, and like one gentleman had blood splatter all over him because he had just been doing CPR on the guy that died. And this officer was frustrated about something and he was sort of taking it out on them. And when I got to the scene and they realized that I was a community observer, the witnesses, they came to me because they wanted to like tell me everything that was going on. And this woman sort of downloaded and processed her feelings with me. And, and she shared that, that this one particular officer, she didn't like how he was communicating. It was not helpful. And then of course I was wondering who it was. And I was able to verify that that officer was not a FIT officer. In fact, they had nothing but good things to say about the FIT officers on the scene. In fact, I might go out on a limb and say that I think that the FIT officers, because of what they do, might have a little bit more training around some of these things and maybe some of the other officers that are sent on scene. I don't know. That was kind of my experience. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what I saw.
Very good. Appreciate that that follow-up. Sergeant Talent.
Yeah, and I just had a couple of quick things. I'll be pretty quick, but one, I just wanted to reiterate, the invite for coming out on a ride along. And if, you don't want to stay the entire time, everybody should have my phone number. You can come out for half the time, just for roll call, coffee, whatever you want, open invite. And then the second thing, going back to what Lionel was talking about earlier with the community engagement, I think in 2022, we did about 80 formal events, which is roughly 1.5 a week. And that's quite a bit considering everything we're dealing with. But then also with the summer coming up, if you guys get wind of things that you would like us to go to, please also make sure you let us know. That's all I had, Pastor.
All right, very good. And then Ronnie, for your purposes, I'll just get in real quick. I did a ride along in December, and my night was not as active as Gina's was, but we were just heading out to I think the southeast area, out by like 122nd and Burnside and something like that. And we got a call that, hey, there was a vehicle that they had been interested in all day long, and some of the FIT officers had engaged that vehicle, and it was on the move, and man, it was going across town at a pretty high rate of speed. We actually encountered it somewhere along Burnside, I think back down around 102nd throughout a spike strip, and it hit the strip and just kept right on going. And then we lost it on the freeway. But then we got word that it was down in the Jansen and the Delta Park area, and so we all went back to North Precinct, regrouped, devised a plan, because again that was a vehicle of very high interest and had been so all day, and then we were able to go down to that area. And when the vehicle pulled out, executed on the plan. In fact, at this point now, the plane was up, and so it helped to locate that vehicle, and we were able to stop it like in the neighborhood and get the two folks out of the vehicle on that night. It was both a male and a female. They both had warrants, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. The guy that was arrested, there was some issue around his phone and him wanting to get that phone to his mom, and some contact being made with her. And I saw one of the FIT officers, secure that phone from him and made a promise to get it to his mom. And so when that was all over with, different car, ended up in the car with the FIT officer that had the phone. And so we took the phone down to his mom, and he got an opportunity to have a conversation with her about what had happened to her son on that night. And, everything turned out okay, at least at that point. And then for the rest of the night, we were down in the southeast area, and, they told me of types of vehicles that have been the subject of a lot of vehicle thefts. And so there was, we were on a kind of high alert those types of vehicles, particularly those that are running around in that classification that were without any plates. And so we encountered, I think, maybe 4 vehicles of that type, and pulled those individuals over and and chatted with them. And some of them I think one was had been purchased. They hadn't done the transfer of the title yet, and so that's why they didn't have plates. And one of the others was someone who should not have been driving, so they did like we had heard earlier. They arranged for family to come and pick that vehicle up and get that person home as well. And then the others turned out to be kind of, they weren't stolen, but we did pull those folks over and have a chat with them to figure out why they're running around without plates. So pretty active night from that standpoint, but that was all that we had on that night on my ride along. And I stayed out until I think it was about 12:30 when I got back to the North Precinct and got in my vehicle and came home. I started with the roll call and just wanted to do the whole shift with them. So again, pick your make your choice on how long you want to stay out, and either way, whether it's a long night or a short night, I think it'll be worthwhile. Okay, if there's nothing further on that, then want to move ahead and hear from Ms. Stephanie Howard on the status of the gunshot detection RFP. Ms. Stephanie.
There we go. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, so the RFP is currently in the scoring process. The evaluation committee is scheduled to meet after reviewing the proposals that were submitted. And once they have met, we will determine next steps, when the town hall will be scheduled, and how it will proceed with the top 2 scoring proposers. So that's where that process is.
Okay. So the town hall that was held last night by PSEP, that was not a part of the RFP process?
No, that was hosted by PSEP on its own.
Okay. Any comment on that?
I know there were, I think, about 200 people on that town hall. The dialogue was extensive. There was a lot of feedback from the community, a lot that is, familiar to this discussion and the discussions that have been ongoing. And, I was there to listen to that feedback and, use that, report back on it to my colleagues at City Hall. Yeah, that's my comment on it.
Okay. And then you have a timeline for what comes next under you all's process?
The meeting, I believe, is on the next meeting for the scoring panel. I think it's on the 15th. Unfortunately, our process is running a little behind. Our procurement contact, the person managing that process, was sick, which set him back in his schedule quite a bit. But as I said, once that meeting happens and the evaluation committee discusses the proposals, then I think we'll have a date for town hall at that point.
Okay. And how many proposals were submitted?
4 proposals were submitted, as I understand it.
Okay. Good. Any questions by anyone else? All right, well then we'll forge right ahead. So item number 5 on our agenda for tonight are a couple of administrative issues for us as a FITCOG. As you know, there has been efforts over the last couple weeks to ensure that each and every one of us get set up in our City of Portland email accounts. And it's my understanding at this point, there's still a few of us who have not gotten that piece of work taken care of. And ladies and gentlemen, again, it's like the ride along. I can't emphasize enough how important it is, particularly at this age and stage of the work that we are doing, that you get your City of Portland email active and in place and engaged, and you are using that for communication purposes. So if you have not done that, please get in touch with Miss Edith tomorrow, post haste, and Miss Edith. I think we're gonna go through that process where what's the guy's name? Is it Rick or Richard?
It's Rick Gresham.
Rick Gresham, right, is available to work with you individually to get you set up from start. He's agreeable to work with you individually from start to finish for the purposes of getting your email set up and established and operational.
May I add one thing, Pastor Williams?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. For Taylor Stone, Terrence Hayes, and Sean Jacobson, I sent you vendor contractor applications. I need to receive those back. I've emailed you a couple of times before I can even set up an email for Mr. Gresham to process. Thank you.
Yeah, so Tay, if you would, check your current email for that document. Get it signed, and I think there's just a couple of other items that you need to add to that, and then get it back to Ms. Edith so that this process can move along.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. And then if anybody is experiencing any technical difficulties, again, give Ms. Edith a call. I think there's a number of people who are standing by to help get things, buttoned up and in place so that your City of Portland email can be fully operational. All right.
Perfect.
And then the second item in this area was, at one point we had broached the possibility of having in-person meetings of the FITCOG, given that we're pretty well along on the backside of the pandemic. And so Ms. Edith, you recall where we're at in that particular process in terms of meeting choices?
Okay, well, as I recall, I sent out an email with the choices I was able to identify, and I've not yet heard back from anyone about a decision from the group as to which places you'd like to explore. I did on my own, and with your permission, Pastor Williams, investigate whether or not the Charles Jordan Center would be appropriate, and they don't have the time they're fully booked on the dates that the FITCOG meets. And I think that's where we left it. I also looked at the Matt Dishman. I think I shared this once before, and I just made an executive decision. I just don't think it meets the standards of this group. So there were other options in that email. I can resend it, and I'm
Ms.
happy
Edith,
to
did
move
we
forward.
Did we check the North Precinct by chance?
I'm sorry.
North Precinct?
Is that no, I did not check the North Precinct. Is that a police station?
It's a
It
police
is,
station,
and
has a community room.
yeah, it is.
I
But I heard, and I saw through another email chain that room is not fully equipped for a meeting of this type.
Very good.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I had not.
Isn't there a facility down in Southeast? I think there's a community center down there.
There is a community center in Southeast. There are a couple. I can't identify them readily, but I can certainly get that information and send that to you and the other members tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, if you would do that, I think it's near.
And maybe send out what are the parameters that we need, like for what do we need for this from the space for it to be a viable space.
What? I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
Is there any specifics that we need from the space? Audio, visual, anything of that nature.
Right. I mean, if the space does not have those things, I would recommend not using them.
But do we have those specifics? That's what I'm trying to get to. Do we know what the specifics are so that one of us who could be looking at a space, I don't want to, just toss you something that, it's like, oh no, we can't do in the library, type of.
I get it.
Because it's missed something. Mm-hmm.
Great. Get it. Okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll follow on that, and hopefully have some movement, something to report back on next week. All right. Item number 6 on our agenda tonight is the title of it is Goals for 2023, but it's probably not a good title, but I want to swing back and touch on a couple of things that came at our last meeting, and that we were into a discussion about the matter of focused deterrence, also what we previously talked about, the VIP list, and there was a suggestion maybe we should begin studying those issues in a little more detail and a little bit of more specificity as things are starting to move and unfold around us. And so wanted to find out tonight from you guys who would be willing to serve as a part of or participate as part of a subgroup to begin doing some research and investigation into either A, focused deterrence, or B, more work in the area of the VIP list information that we learned about down in Tampa at the Project Safe Neighborhoods conference. So that's really a question for Lionel, Victor, Ronnie, Tay, Gina, Kimberly, and myself.
Would these be like task groups?
Yeah, this would be like task groups.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think usually with advisory groups, the task groups are we vote on the groups, and then people self-select into them or they get assigned.
Hey, Gina, Walsh, you want to come back again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so my recommendation, this is a point of process, is what can be helpful, at least in the groups I'm in. Usually as a group, we take a consensus vote on the task groups, make sure that we're all wanting to do them. And then the task groups are out and then people sign up for them. And then usually if people don't sign up, then the chair or the chairs automatically assign people to task groups. But we're a group, so that probably doesn't need to happen. We're not running like 6 different task groups, some of the other advisory groups, but
right.
But I'm already on. I'd be happy to be on the task group that looks VIP.
Okay.
It's Victor. Maybe I'll get on the task group also.
Which one, Victor?
The VIP group.
Okay.
So I definitely really appreciate in this group with Gina. I've learned, and so I appreciate her feedback about voting on the potential task groups are going to be. and what they then like, what does that actually look like? So I'm not really sure what the responsibilities would be in light of whatever task group that I was going to be in. So just so, because I'm definitely invested in both the focal intervention and the VIP list. And so I want to just get more clarification on what the responsibilities are. And also if those are actual task groups that we as a group want to do. So.
Well, those were issues that we raised at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago that seemed to be areas of high interest and concern from our conversation last week. And there was a statement and seemed to be the sentiment at the time. These were two areas that we needed to give, that it would be helpful if we started now giving some attention to them, giving the direction in which things seem to be moving at this point. We wanted to try to get out ahead of it as opposed to coming in behind those issues. So particularly it's these task groups are to garner as much information around these two areas so that we can be informed as to what's happening in other locations, other jurisdictions, and just what is the current state of best practices in these areas. Focused deterrence and VIP list, or and that VIP list, it could go by other names in other places. That's what they called it in Tampa. It could be just a services program in some other area. Yeah, that basically is our would be our focus. Would be more of an educational approach and understanding of what is currently happening in and around country in these areas. Gina, I see your hand.
Thank you. Lyle, so to answer your question regarding responsibilities in a task group. So the task group form, and then you as a task group, as a subgroup, you would probably be meeting outside of FITCOG time to do planning, research. So a task is really whatever the topics that you're doing. You as a group would decide what are the key areas you want to zero in on or look at. And then you would decide yourselves who is doing what as far as researching. And then you would do the research, then you would together formulate some sort of document or statement about that topic. So, ideally you would probably identify, because you're going to bring that information back to the main group so that the main group can make some kind of decision around as to, is this something we will support or not support based on the research that you've done. And then you're probably, as a group, are going to want to come up with some sort of rubric for how you determine what is good research, right? So, for example, just pulling Google articles up, from news sources is probably, that may or may not be your best way to determine. I mean, we're living in a stage of lots of false news, and so there is some tediousness to it as far as having to sift through and just kind of trace back some sources. But one of the best ways that the task groups can likely do this is go directly to agencies, different community groups, and other reasons that are already doing those things, and looking at what things that they've already published out there about those things, and maybe come up with a set of questions to sort of what is it that you want to know specifically about those things. And then basically, put together some kind of report back for a larger group to read over. And then we as a group can look at it, discuss it, and then decide if we want to, what's the reason why VIP and focus insurance were on the list. And I think we easily add other talks too, is just that the city of Portland has said interested in those things. And there are people currently in Portland pushing for a focused deterrence model here in Portland, and it would directly impact the FIT, and it would directly impact the communities that we're concerned about. So that would be the job of the task. And then you guys would decide among yourselves who is doing what. Maybe you're pulling together a document where you're co-creating that together, or one person is the researcher and one person types up the information. I mean, it's kind of however you do it. And then you would maybe a timeline for your group, how long your task group need in order to do this. Is it a month? Is it a couple weeks? And then kind of tell the main group what your goal is, your deadline. And would just basically work on that outside of FITCOG time and then give report backs on your process. And then when you were ready to set your document, you would let the chair know and say, we have a document. You would send it to Pastor Ed and our co-chair, Kimberly Dixon, then, and then they would disseminate it among the large group for us to read, and then it would go on the agenda, and then we would discuss a large group.
Thank you. That was very thorough. And so I'm excited though. I'm definitely in alliance with the two topics. I just like the process of it because I'm taking some of these processes to my team. But yeah, Pastor Ed, lock me on the this is a tough one because I'm invested in both categories. I'm gonna go with the first intervention.
Okay, on focus learns.
Yeah, focus learns.
Okay.
Yeah, just another question is, so I want to also have input on the VIP, but not have the responsibility to do a lot of the research and stuff. I can do both of them. So
Right.
how's that look?
I don't personally see why members can't be in multiple groups. If you have capacity, I think the thing is we don't want people feeling like they don't have capacity. I mean, if you feel like you have capacity to engage in both, I mean, I personally, as a member of this group, don't have an issue with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't either. I just didn't want to overburden folks. I know that, once we start breaking off into these task groups or subgroups, whatever you want to call them, this is, now you're starting to get into real work and your time. So, want to give it, we want to give it a good, so.
So, but I do want to have some input VIP list because I just think that is something that I believe could be it's going to be very powerful. And just from my perspective, actually receiving service and now giving people services, I want to be able to be in the room.
Sure. Okay, I got you on both sides. All right. Tay, you have a preference? See Ronnie on IP. Okay. Ms. Kimberly, any thoughts from you tonight? Which one you want to work on, if any?
I probably want to popcorn at both. So I will probably be corning is what I will do.
Okay. And I'll give them some prior attention to focus, and certainly we'll hear from you guys on VIP as well. And then we'll also check in with the other members of our group not here tonight and see what their preference is. Okay. All right. Well, it's 5 minutes after the hour, so I want to just jump down to. We'll go real quickly to item number 7, and that is just mention again our meeting cadence for the balance of the month. We meet again on the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd of March. Will not meet on the 30th. But we'll resume on April the 13th. So we'll go 9th, 16th, 23rd of March, and then we'll take off for 2 weeks, and that's because there's spring break in the Portland school system, followed by spring break in the Vancouver school district, and then we will resume it again on April the 13th. Okay. So that's our meeting cadence going forward. All right, with that being said, we'll move now real quickly to our public comment section. See, we have 6 people who are hanging in there with us in our meeting. We want to give you all an opportunity to share just a couple minutes of comment, and then after that has concluded, then we will move into our confidential briefing session. So just in the order as I see them on my screen, those of you who are attendees will be Corrine, Kate, Mark, Trish, and I see a couple things from KATU News, probably just the machines. but want to give you guys an opportunity to share 2 minutes of public comment or statement before we move forward. And so I'm going to start first with Corinne.
Hi, this is Corinne Frischett. I'm with FITCOG, which is the Budgetary Advisory Committee. And I just want to thank you for all your work and also welcome you if you ever want to attend our meetings or connect with us with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Kate.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, good evening. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I hope that the all the FITCOG members and FIT team members will watch the video or the transcript of the town hall last night. There were so many people there all committed to, increasing safety, really motivated, really active community members. There was tons of really great ideas proposed in terms of how to increase safety, and there was near, if universal, opposition on technology with a lot of resource and research and rationale provided. People were really frustrated. They're asked for input and then nothing ever happens when the decisions are made. It's not given any. I appreciate Captain Jen was there, which was wonderful. But I think, I heard a lot of comments this evening about FIT members being interested in improving communications, building that trust, increasing community engagement. And here were over 100 people in the community who are really, really engaged on something that you're working on. And I think responding and watching that or reading the transcript would be really helpful. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, appreciate that very much. Mark.
Can we get the transfer of that video, Pastor Ed?
I'll have to check with Ms. Hitt to see if that is possible. I could get into the meeting, but could not get in. I think the link, I found out later after the fact that said the link that I had was broken. So, but to the extent that it's ordered, I think we should be able to get it. So we'll check with Ms. Edith. Are you available?
He's not responding, Pastor Williams.
Okay. Finally,
he put a note in the chat. Sorry, just so you know, he put a note in the chat that he doesn't have a microphone and he's just listening. So he thanks everyone for being here.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Miss Edith, I see there's a link in the chat, I guess, from the town hall thing from last night. So will you pull that down and make sure we all get?
Absolutely.
And finally, Miss Trish.
Yeah, hi. I just mentioned that I attended most of the forum last night. I was kind of disappointed. While I absolutely appreciated the interest of community members, and there were many very articulate comments made, but I was sorry that the representatives, the panel, had one particular point of view, and that was anti the technology, which then, kind of echoed throughout the evening. I frankly was disappointed, and I know this, I'm not laying this at FITCOG's doorstep. I was sorry that there wasn't a FITCOG member there. Again, while some of the facts that were stated are there and need to be dealt with, I have concerns about the cost and the effectiveness of the technology, but I keep hearing same, Arthur Center, Chicago, et cetera, facts, being cited without any or without other side. And it just, I did try to ask a question. Actually, Captain Jensen was a 3-part question, which in a sense attempted to get, shall we say, positive facts. I was asking what does FIT do, and what is this community engagement? But in many ways, that was the forum for that. I just felt that it was slanted in a particular direction. And so it wasn't really a forum. But anyway, as I said, there were many very articulate thoughts and issues that FITCOG I know has considered and will be continuing to consider. So, I did want to, just as a citizen, thank Captain Jensen and all Stephanie Howard for attempting to impart as much information as they could. They served FITCOG well. But anyway, that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trish. We appreciate it very much. All right. Okay, well, ladies
Hey,
and gentlemen.
Pastor, really, I just want to note for the record that Dr. Ronning was there last night and she was definitely active participating. I think she spoke and also was active in the comments. So I appreciate her being there.
Very good. Okay. Well, want to thank one of you all for being with us on this evening. And with that, we will conclude our public session of this meeting and go into our confidential briefing. So I'm going to ask you all, if you would, to disengage yourselves, and we'll turn off the recording and go into our confidential briefing. So Ms. Edith, if you would share that, stop the recording, please.